Announced mass strikes by, among others, Verdi, party blockades, Sasha. The situation is absolutely out of control. Today, Belfast is burning, tomorrow, Europe, and the day after tomorrow, Germany, if things keep going like this. And the Bundesrat is no longer willing to support the decisions of this federal government and is once again blocking some laws. It's over for Friedrich Merz. How is this person who just sits there paralyzed and lets himself be shown up supposed to make any decisions here at all? And before we get into it, please leave a like and subscribe. It would help this channel tremendously. The Federal Minister for Labor and Social Affairs was defended by all parties yesterday. Hold on, she didn't actually commit any misconduct at all. After she painted all of us as the same shade of brown, disregarded the traffic regulations, and yes, at the same time insulted us so harshly. That's what the video is about this morning, and I have to tell you, it's really explosive. We'll start first with mass demonstrations in Germany that have been announced.
They want to push it through, so a far-reaching package should be passed, which is what we're hearing from the unions. Because at least in that case there had already been talk of mass strikes, which they would call if necessary.
So of course there was no more talk of that yesterday or the day before. I've already discussed this in some videos. Now, however, people are afraid of the poll numbers and they're so panicked that the AfD might possibly govern in Saxony-Anhalt that they might back down from these mass demonstrations. But only if the reform package doesn't turn out to be too harsh for these citizens. By the way, the social security funds are also empty. Yesterday, there was already the new heating energy law, which just passed in the Bundestag yesterday. And yesterday, there was another very clear statement about it. And that also underlines how explosive it is now for Friedrich Merz. In a moment, we'll also talk briefly about Europe. Half of Europe hates Germany because of this chancellor. No joke. I'll show you right away.
Because the Environment Committee in the Federal Council has already leaked that the states will not approve this law when it comes to the Federal Council.
This chancellor has not only managed to deeply divide Germany, and I mean really, really deeply divide it. By the way, this is very important for all of you out there. I have to tell you this. We are no longer allowed to call the cartel parties. That is now illegal. So please, I'm referring to a quote from the Bundestag yesterday. You're not allowed to call the cartel parties anymore. I just said it like that. That's exactly how it is. You know which ones I mean. That's why I would never again make the claim that the established old parties are some kind of cartel parties here in Germany. And what's causing division in Germany right now are demonstrations. And now I'll quickly read to you what Friedrich Merz has managed to do in the last few days. Maximum stress because of FCAS with France. Italy doesn't even come to the EU summit anymore because they're having issues with Friedrich Merz. Austria is furious with Germany and will now advocate for normal and clean politics with the UN Security Council. Belgium is so extremely angry, the Prime Minister actually argued with Friedrich Merz all autumn just 2 weeks ago. But de vivre. The Austrians, the Swiss are now so angry, they said the Germans won't just come here and breathe our air while passing through, now they have to pay. Unless they're on vacation and finally bring money to Switzerland or move there. The Poles are so extremely angry, including Daniel Tusk, that Friedrich Merz shouldn't even bother showing up there anymore. Czechia is represented by Andrej Babis. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yes, he's at the highest level of escalation because he feels deceived by Friedrich Merz. Dear Europeans, so do we. He has brought this country to ruin, and there's no one who could sum it up as well as this lady.
The CDU and its credibility problem, that's nothing new. Why? Because when the AfD says the sky is blue, the other parties say it's green because they're trying to do what they think is right. Then you lose credibility, and if I may put it bluntly, you kind of fool the voters.
That happened again yesterday, which fits exactly into this whole Europe issue. Whenever it's somehow against the CDU, you could almost call it a cartel, though we're not allowed to. Now, even here in Germany, voters are increasingly given room to escalate. And here's another great example for you. Yesterday, people stood up and said, yeah, on the day of American independence. They said they would hold a party convention on that day and that you could compare it to a former, I think, NSDAP party convention or something like that. Guys, that's the Independence Day of the Americans. And everyone who has watched Independence Day knows exactly which date we're talking about. Of course they did that, but that's what, if you ask anyone on this planet, that's the first thing they'll say about it. That connects people, and yes, fitting for the World Cup so that as many people as possible notice it. They couldn't have done it any better. But when it came up yesterday, you know, that the federal president wants to elect the new president of the Bundestag, the new federal president, exactly on the day of the seizure of power.
Den neuen Bundespräsidenten wählen möchte. Oh.
Well, personally, I really have to say this is causing a stir again, including in Europe. Exactly, that's right. When the National Socialists seize power, exactly on that day, our new federal president will be elected. And the CDU dismissed it yesterday and didn't want to comment on it. Yesterday, I also played you Saskia Esken, where Tino Chrupalla spoke out against it twice and said, we don't need to abolish that, the voters will take care of it themselves.
The health insurance company DRK Gesundheit is calling for a fair solution to close the funding gap in statutory health insurance. The current deficit threatens to grow by another 3.5 billion euros next year, reaching more than 16 billion euros.
Why did I say today Belfast is burning, tomorrow Europe, and the day after tomorrow Germany? This also affects the health insurance funds here in Germany. There are now indeed premium increases, even though they had clearly ruled that out. We can't refinance it any other way. And now let's play this very briefly. I'll show you a short clip in a moment where Germans in Germany were forbidden to put up flags. It's the World Cup. We don't have money for public viewing. But money for the CSD here in Germany, by the way, employees find it pretty uncool when you take football away from them. Here in Germany, hardly anyone in the West puts up flags anymore. Meanwhile, I got information, I asked about this in a video, from the East. Guys, also all the emails you sent me, I haven't managed to reply to everyone yet. That really warmed my heart. You sent me so many pictures, yes, but almost all of them were from the East. There, everything is black, red, and gold. In Germany, it's different. People can't afford it. That's how all these things are, yes. There's money for climate ideology madness, but not money for our own citizens. And these reforms, which now have to be supported, also have to be supported to some extent by these unions. And yesterday only behind closed doors, which should never get out. Of course, I also don't have this information that I was told again that there would really be hardcore demonstrations if the reform package, as it basically stands now, comes into effect. By the way, they're afraid of the elections. At the same time, also in North Rhine-Westphalia, but more on that later on. Yes, it's gotten to the point here that Germany, and I've always said this for about a year and a half now, Germany is on the verge of a civil war. And if these reforms go through, then all hell will break loose. Well, and in Europe, I just wonder how he's gonna bring up the billions for pensions with Spain. The, yes, left-wing president back there, while at the same time somehow trying to make a move toward the right. Germany is absolutely isolated. We've noticed that now in the UN Security Council as well. We're on our own. And by now, I even have the feeling that they just want our money. While the AfD Party Congress will take place on Independence Day, maybe to send a signal that we don't necessarily need the EU when we're its biggest net contributor, and that we finally have to stop bankrolling this EU left and right. And at the same time, I also believe that we should pull back a little, and that's why the AfD Party Congress couldn't have taken place on a better day. Why not? Let's become independent. Nobody in the EU wants to have anything to do with us. Only with the checkbooks that we hand out generously. And we basically have no money left. Like I said, a CSD, a Christopher Street Day, that gets funded. A rainbow flag is allowed to hang in the window of the Bundestag. It's still hanging there, while a German flag is forbidden.
Should I go back in? Yes, Hensel. Want the suggestions? Hensel, listen. You can go over there if you want, but not with the German flag. You can settle that over there. Are you basically marking the assembly barricades here? No, we're just going from the station to there. Like I said, that's one option. And whether I have the flag there or if I have a chair on it, it's so the group knows where I am. You have to leave that up to me. She did too. And I walk around in my country with my flag for too long, and where I am, it can't.
And that's the perfect closing statement. The rainbow flag is still hanging there because it was put up by the SPD. And I walk with my German flag as a German citizen wherever I think it's right. End of story.